like what was going on in Summer Split where he was kind of ropey, and then now as soon as LEC playoff hits, as soon as Worlds hits, he's just incredibly good again.
I think he's been. I think often he's what we have been challenged with is trying to find the right champions that cover our weaknesses as a team and also basically make our strengths really shine through. I think Azir is one of those champions that's very complete in the sense that he feels comfortable to just play for himself and to gain individual leads and then make sure that he farms the side waves and get to the point where he can dominate the game on his own. In Spring Split, a champion like that for us was LeBlanc, and I think throughout the year we experimented with playing the Thalia ourselves, and that didn't really work out. We were playing some Vex, and this was something that didn't work as well as we saw in scrims. And it was always kind of an exploration that his performance, like any other player within the team, is very correlated with what's going on within the team. And from an inside perspective, what I was seeing in scrims and looking and really reviewing the details of his play, I always felt like this guy was really fucking good. I didn't really feel at any point like, yo, Humanoid, you're just playing bad right now. What the fuck is going on? Sure, there was that occasional game where he just died level 3 when it didn't need to, here and there, but I think that this created a very easy narrative to go to in terms of how Humanoid is as a player. And of course I'm biased because I'm working with so much more information, so I always view them in the light where this guy is really fucking good. But I do have to agree with the notion that when it came to the World Championship, he was completely in his element. Like he found the discipline to practice more than anybody. He was always there grinding the games on the same champions over and over again. He was doing it on repeat. Silas, Akali, Victor, Azir, LeBlanc, and just kept chopping away at these 5 champs, and the practice just showed in itself. I think in play-ins what he did to those mid laners was borderline illegal. I think even in groups, what he did in lane phase against most of the guys that he played against was also insanity. And I think it just him finding the right comfort for him in context with the weaknesses that we had as a team, maybe connecting around mid and securing mid and finding ways where we played around Herald. This is something that we definitely struggle with. And he found himself in those champions, and they just correlated very well with the meta that is currently ongoing.
I'm curious, from the group stage and from the teams you scrimmed, as well as obviously the swirling scrim rumors that happen among all the teams that are present for the World Championships. Have you been surprised by any of the results so far? Like, is there a team underperforming based on scrims or based on the practice or the rumors, or is there a team that's been really overperforming in your mind?
So we practice very little against teams besides
Sure, I
RNG
get that.
and DRX. Like we only played against RNG and DRX, and we played 2v2s against GenG's bot lane. This is like the practice that we managed to find, and we played one day against Seafood. What's it? Flying Oysters? Fucking Seafood. CFO. Fucking CFO. So beyond that, I have very limited information. Like I was spending a lot of my time just watching Champions Queue and studying the games that appeared, and I tried to make sure that the boys get as much practice as possible outside of the scrimming environment to prepare us for the group stage. So I'm sorry to tell you, I have very limited information. Like at DRX, I think we scrimmed DRX and they were showing us a lot of interesting stuff that they brought up on stage, and it was very interesting to scrim against Beryl. He's just as crazy in scrims as he is on stage. Zeka and Kingen, very good players with a lot of flair in terms of how they played, and mechanically very talented. And beyond that, nothing else to share. I felt like the DRX was stronger than RNG in scrims. That's the one thing I can say.
No
Did you
rumors from
play
the other
against?
teams, though. The other
Did you play
coaches?
against top esports at all?
Nothing at all. No. It's like the issue we had is I was told by a lot of the teams that were already in groups, they already booked everything out with each other all the way throughout group stage. So we were in a position where we didn't qualify yet, so I had no argument. They book with us. Come on, yeah. I had no pull there at all. So I just made sure to be very close with DRX and RNG. I was booking scrims with RNG through email. Like that's how we did it there. Like it was mental to just fucking write emails to book scrims. It felt very primitive almost, but at the same time not.
We've evolved into Discord only scrim booking at this point in time as an industry, right?
Yes. It was good to catch up with Tabby over email, though, ever since 2015 Worlds.
By the way, one thing I want to ask you, look, it's obviously a layup question, but I want to get your take on this, right? Bearing in mind all the problems with the scrims, like we've talked about, and the travel and people being ill and having to use a substitute to start the tournament, I think even a disadvantage. Look, here's the thing. There's an advantage and a disadvantage to playing planes. The advantage is you've got a chance to get some things together, practice on the patch, warm up. The disadvantage is everyone else who, for you, is a black box if you don't scrim them. They're just watching your games, just seeing how you play, seeing what you pick, etc. And you have to play properly to try and qualify. So what I would ask is this, coming into the group, I actually think in your group, everyone was saying, remember, like, this is a group where in theory, like, maybe even C9 beats Fnatic, all those fucking whack narratives, right? So a lot of people would have said there's no way Fnatic can get out of this group. If you look how it went, the win over T1, the game was close against DWG the first time around. Like, yeah, week 2 wasn't as good, but there's a world where you could have been in a tiebreaker in this group. So how do you evaluate the performance of Fnatic in the group?
I think essentially the second day, I think that we misplayed our 3v3s around bottom side and misplayed around Rift Herald in ways that we just couldn't recover from. It was the game against EDG where they played Jinx, Thresh, and we just died in the 3v3. There was a situation where against the Yuumi as well, the Sivir Yuumi, we got caught when we can't, and we had to give up Herald when we're not supposed to in the context of what is being drafted. And I think if you get past the lane phase, this is the initial thing. The past first 10 minutes, and you get actually to play a game that is a lot more simple, and you can play around the fights more, and the compositions that we like to draft tend to play themselves. But we managed to fuck up things that the other teams were just a lot better at. There was the first game against C9. We had the 3v3 on bottom side with the Javan, we EQ'd in, and then the fight, maybe we could have just flashed with the Phelios, rooted the Jinx with no flash, and just won the game on the spot. Instead, we didn't.
Yeah, that was my question, because like that first game was so unlike you guys. Like the Poppy went all the way through the draft, like didn't get banned, didn't get picked, and like you picked the Jarvan instead. And I was watching Razork, and like you say, he didn't actually EQ flash at that bottom gank. And I was like, this guy's mechanics like just don't look good on Jarvan. I'm curious as to why you guys decided to go with like the Jarvan Soraka, because it was very different than what you had shown previously to Worlds in terms of your team style.
Yeah, and in that moment, C9 did pretty damn good prep. Like they caught us with our pants down in a way that they picked the champions that would be quite good into us, because basically the recipe that we followed was that we are going to pick a self-sufficient top laner that is a tank, a jungler that can be active level 3 and just be functioning on low economy, a mid laner that is going to be a mage in most cases, and then a bot lane matchup that provides some sense of volatility that potentially that we can win and gain advantages in. And they decided to just go Ornn, Orianna, Trundle, which already in most cases, if you're playing front to back into Ornn, Trundle, you're going to be losing. So we already were in a spot where it was a lot harsher. Like in hindsight, we probably needed to pick jungle on 3 instead of dropping jungle, because we picked Trundle on 3. Picking Poppy into Trundle feels quite counterintuitive, into Orianna too. And the AD that they chose was also not that good for Poppy, so we had to choose something else. We ended up on the Javan, and Javan is very bad in cases where you're just playing a game that is front to back. Javan's never going to be able to EQ in. If he does, he's going to die first, and you're just going to lose the game. So C9 definitely had the better draft in that game, and then we also misplayed. The Rift Herald situation was good for us. We had level 6 Javan against level 5 Trundle. We could have definitely won the game on the spot there if we played it out correctly, or the 3v3 on bottom side. I think maybe there could be a case for, like, maybe Aphelios could flash Q, root into EQ, silence of Soraka into 3v3 3 win. But those are always like the small details that can make you lose in a best of one against teams that know how to win. Like that game for C9, if they get an advantage, that game is just going to play itself. We're not going to find any comebacks with the draft that we had. There's just no way in hell that we're going to accomplish anything that is significant in a game like that when we're behind. And
did you feel like that was kind of a trap game? Because one of my many problems with the world's format is that these days at MSI and at Worlds, where you play 3 different opponents in the same day, is something that never happens to any League of Legends team outside of 2 days a year. Once at MSI and once at Worlds. And the reason why they do this is because they can't hold all the tiebreakers until the final day. So they can't do what they did in the first round robin. You have to play each day's tiebreakers. Now, we could just eliminate this by doing GSL groups, obviously, and having a sensical format. But is it, like, how fucking hard is it to prepare for 3 different opponents in the same day?
I think on our end, we carried a lot of the information that we had in the preparation from the previous matches, which was still relevant because habits die hard. And on our end, like my biggest fear was, it was just a question of time before teams actually figure out us, because we only played a certain way that worked for us. And the moment like C9 decided to draft as they did, it was very little wiggle room for us to push past that, because we always needed to make very difficult choices in draft about what we drop 4-5. Because if they sniped the correct champions, sometimes we would end up being in trouble. Like the first round against T1, we were very fortunate to get Lucian Nami 4-5. Like that was very good for us. They picked Aphelios Thresh and they were happy to play that matchup. But we were also very happy to play that matchup, and Lucian Nami was a very big thing for us. And then after that, looking for Lucian Nami in the 4-5 felt very implausible coming into, of course, the second week. I think in terms of what adjustments you can do between the matches, you know, I guess the only consolidation is that every team is kind of facing the same. Like we had to play the first match and the second match and then the fourth match. So you could maybe argue that the scheduling was harsher on us because we had to play the first 2 games and people got to view us before playing us. But I think on my end, I've found my peace that we lost because we deserved to lose on the day, and not related to necessarily the format. But I could see how the format could be a detriment to us in maybe a different scenario where the games were closer and we could maybe use extra time to prepare for the opposition between the games, because you get to see the opposition play as well.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.